Hello and welcome everybody this evening to Finding Voices Radio. We of course are Freedom Central, coming to you live from the Netherlands. The local time here is 7 p.m. on the 30th of September 2012. My name as always is Mel V and I'll be your host for the next few hours. And of course, dealing with all things technical and manning the chat forum is my wonderful beloved partner Richard.
Welcome everybody to the show.
For those of you who are new to our show, welcome, and please feel free to catch up on our previous work, which of course is all archived on our website, freedomcentral.info. Tonight is the last Sunday night of September, and as September is Child Abuse Awareness Month, I decided to dedicate the last show of September to the victims and survivors of child abuse. The group that I have joining us today are rather special. It's a couple of ladies who are folks who were strong in the movement, but unfortunately they've been shattered and dispersed, and there are many elements which have just scattered to the four winds. And I've been learning how many strong, committed groups have been broken up by the various co-opted elements of the truth movement, such as the HollieGrieg campaign, stroke hoax, and various charities that surround these sort of pseudo psyops type campaigns, such as Truth and Hope, which of course we will discuss tonight. Many of you may be aware that Freedom Central has often done shows where we expose the control opposition, and I discuss the evidence as well as take other people's studied opinions into account. All too often, it is the people who are the most vulnerable, who are affected by these self-invested elements of any justice campaign. And tonight, we have a group of ladies, or should I say two of them, because not all of them could join us, who will be speaking to us about abuse, about their experiences, and the neglect at the hands of not only the system, but those who profit off the false mantra of being helpers of these survivors and of the desperate, the suffering and the oppressed, when to be honest with you, they're quite the opposite. So tonight I've got Louise and Sheva joining us. Let me just pop on over to the Skype and see if they are there. Ladies, are you there?
Yes.
Hello, that's Louise.
And yes.
Hello, Sheva. All right, ladies. Your voices are both very distinctive, so I think you can just speak freely without having to say who you are when you want to speak up. Firstly, of course, you ladies contacted me. Sheva, you contacted me. I think let's start with the reasons why you did that.
Well, a few days ago, I was actually quite distressed. I think it was about Wednesday morning, and I was feeling very guilty because I was just popping onto the rally group occasionally just to check in and see how it was going, and finding that, and this will probably unravel as we talk, but I couldn't really fully get behind it, and I couldn't publicise it. Through different accounts that I have, I'm in touch with a lot of very major sites that have been working solidly for 20 and 30 years on this subject, and none of them knew even that the rally was existing. And the march part only was publicised about a week before. And again, I just sort of looked for it on sites that for the last 16 years have been promoting this thing, even while I was missing, because I began it in 93, I ran it in 94 as well, and then I dropped away. 2009 I came back to, I came online for the first time, and then I found out that the rally and march was still going on. I was really excited.
Sorry, can I just say this is the rally for child abuse awareness?
Yes, child abuse awareness, and the dream was that if we talked about it enough and explained enough, that not only would adult survivors get the help they needed, but that we would somehow manage to stop it, because at that time, back in the early 90s, nobody was really talking about it. I was involved at that time with groups, but it was all very secret. There was a sort of hidden network of people. And I just said, it's a bit like slavery. We're going to have to be the ones to break silence, to make this change. And that was the only thing I could think of doing at the time, was that we have to raise up our heads and show the world that there's actually nothing wrong with us. We're all kinds of people. We come from all kinds of black backgrounds, and that this terrible thing has happened to us. It's not our fault. It's not our shame to carry. We can hold our heads high and show ourselves in public, talk about it. Those that are ready to, that can, please come out with me onto the street. Let's show the enormity of this. And in fact, that very first rally was really amazing. There were around 1,500 people in the square, and I didn't say very much, but one of the things I did do was that I asked people, if you've been abused or you know somebody that has, put your hand up. And everybody in the square that day put their hand up. And then I said, well, if you know 3 or 4 people that have been abused, keep your hand up. And then I went into the hundreds, and there was still hands up. And then I said, even 1,000 or more, because I'm talking now to the helplines. And there were helplines then. And we were all inundated. Any time that there was any group around sexual abuse, we got inundated. None of us could cope with it all. So there were still hands up. And the amazing thing for me was that afterwards, the police chief that had been sort of at the head of organising the police part of helping us and supporting us, he came up and he said, and in those days I was known as Sue Melrose, he said, Sue, this is one of the most, I can't think of the word, but, he was telling me that he felt honoured to be alongside us. And he said, we didn't have to do anything because it's been so peaceful. And he said, most of my men have actually spent the afternoon in the bus because they had nothing to do. And then he said, but it wasn't only that. They were actually bawling their eyes out, most of them. They had no idea. But when you got people raising their hands, and we suddenly saw the enormity. Now, I know that some of those police went on to create things like CEOP and things that did then start to create change. Now, we know it's not all good. We know lots has gone wrong, but it started things happening. And certainly if you get involved in looking at the major sites, which you won't see represented at the rallies today, but sites like NAPAC, even Into the Light, that is a supporter of the rally now, they all started back in 93, 94 as groups that congregated, concretised and got stronger, because now survivors were dropping off that shame, talking more, joining up more. So it had a very creative ripple effect. But when I came back in 2009, one of the first things that happened was somebody handed me a piece of paper and said, that's our chance. And I said, you're joking? Who tells us what to chant? This is about us saying whatever we like today. That was the point. This is the day, and the way I promoted it back in the early days was that we're just going to have a mic there, and you can say whatever you like, and instead of being shunned, you will be applauded. And so much healing came from that. You could feel it, and you could see it. And that was what I came back, after seeing 2009, how it had become controlled and small. I wanted to re-inject that freedom, that spontaneity, that creativity. And in fact, that happened. There were hundreds of people there that had their poems ready, their songs ready, and they were just turned away because by that time, it just progressed into that I was suddenly told that we've got speakers coming and we need half an hour for Brian Gerrish, we need half an hour for Robert Greene, we need half an hour for David Icke, and by the way, there's a healer coming to give a mass healing, and that's going to take another half an hour. And so we've got 2 hours taken up by people I didn't even know. I knew of them vaguely, but I had a bit of a hands-off with all of them. Not sure, because I was already engaging with the deeper, and I would say the real, survivor movement. And certainly at that time, people like NAPAC had the rally, and they were promoting it. They were happy to. And they were very pleased that I was back on board, because they knew me. I'm running out of steam.
It's all right. Take your time.
Yeah, but that's sort of very briefly, I guess,
All right.
history.
All right, so basically, just to sum it all up, you were an avid supporter. The movement you were creating back in '93 was very big. It was gaining momentum, and it started to cool down. And you noticed with that came a lot of big names who seemed to usurp and take over this thing that had really began to gain momentum. And to be honest with you, this is something we're seeing, and it's historical. To be honest with you, even the women's rights movement was completely, in the end, co-opted. But, you know, the thing is that all these freedom movements, all these well-intended things are eventually taken over before they actually have any impact to change anything. And this is how, I guess, you've come to know of my work, is because I've been exposing a lot of this co-opted information. Now, to the outside world who knows nothing about conspiracy, trying to explain to them the subtle layers of the controlled opposition. You know, it's the people who oppose what's going on, but actually they're controlled by the very people that they answer to. You try to explain that to someone who doesn't get anything at all, and it's a tough sell. But to be honest with you, this is what's going on, and we would be a fool to think that the control system that controls absolutely everything hasn't somehow got some way of controlling uprisings, which are very powerful. And particularly amongst people who have suffered, there is a passion and there is a motivation that you possibly, it can absolutely start a revolution if it's not controlled and quelled. And I guess this is possibly where you have found yourself now. Am I not correct?
It is, but it happened before. Very quickly after the '93 rally, the whole thing was filmed by the BBC, and they were going to be making a documentary showing as much of the rally as they could, and they were very committed. The film crew were fantastic, and there were concerns. I mean, not everybody felt like they wanted to be filmed, so we worked it all out. Sort of thinking on our feet. We were sort of telling people, well, just put your hand up if you don't want to be filmed. And the camera crew promised that they would drop the camera so that they wouldn't film those people. And we promised them that afterwards we wouldn't be just airing everybody that had spoken. We would be seeking their permission. We really tried to make it safe as possible. And the crew were marvellous. Now, apparently afterwards, they were told it could not be shown, and the crew threatened to walk out unless it was shown. But so indeed, there are some clips, and I do have the footage on old VHS videos, and I'm over the next week or so going to get this all pulled out and online with some help, because I'm just not very good with technicalities.
And how you feel.
I'm gonna get this stuff and I'm gonna air it, because it does tell this story. That then what happened, you see, false memory syndrome suddenly became an issue. And so I was invited to go on to Kilroy and other programmes, but it all switched into being about false memory syndrome. So this came in really quickly. So for me, looking back, it's like suddenly we're shouting, we're loud, we're noisy, we're demanding change, and they've got an excuse to tell us that we're all mad, bad and crazy.
Yeah.
and not worth listening to, because we probably made it up, and if we didn't make it up, then the therapist just got us to think this. And I went on Sky News at one point, up against a therapist who was saying about false memory syndrome, and she was saying there's all these therapists telling these people that they've got these memories, and I said, well, where are they? Because I know from being me trying to get help and talking to other survivors, we can't find therapists that will even talk to us. They don't know what to do with us. They're turning us away. So where are these therapists that are actually going to not only listen to us, but encourage us to have these false memories? I've never met them. And that was kind of how it was. It was very crazy back then. And later on, we do find out that there was the paedophile information exchange. And again, I've got footage, and there is footage out online, if we can pull it together, that proves that our government, both parties, had people that were up very close and personal with the paedophile information exchange. And the MPs brush it aside and say, well, nobody knew in those days how much harm it did. What? When did anybody think it was okay to abuse or rape a child and that it wouldn't do any harm? And we hear the same from the Catholic priests and Pope. You know, anybody that we've managed to gain momentum, and there are massive, huge groups with millions of supporters working on this because they've just remained strong and gathered together. They will not come to this rally now as it is now, because it's been infiltrated again and taken over. And this is where I'm not prepared to say that HollieGrieg's story is necessarily untrue. I really don't know. And but what I do know is that what the campaign has done. They managed to viralise HollieGrieg, and then they managed to attract thousands and hundreds of thousands of people the world over. And I helped them to do that, actually. I helped them in quite a big way.
So did I.
I helped them because I was promoting their groups alongside all of the other groups that are involved in bringing light to sexual abuse. And now, looking back, it's they going into their groups, which I did do sometimes, and I'd say something and I'd put Cross of Change in there and tell them what we were doing, and that there were many other groups working on this, and they would shut it down each time. They did not want me talking in their group about any other case. And I know that this has happened to lots of people, that we had to focus on one case only, and that was HollieGrieg, because if that case was broken, all cases would be broken. And I did argue back then with quite a few of the central characters that I didn't think they were right. But that's what they were doing, and so, you know, I'm not the police force of the child survivor movement. But what I've seen has happened is that they've sucked up so much energy that could have been spread to raise the awareness in a much broader way for everybody, which was what I attempted in the early days. Again, going back to the 90s, the most bullying I got when I was doing the first rally was from women's groups that didn't want men there. They were telling me that all men were potential abusers and shouldn't be allowed. And I said, well, I don't think so. I think that men are being abused too, and we need to hear them. I also want my sons to hear this stuff. I want them to know what's going on. I want them protected, and I also want them to be aware of what abuse is, and so that they're functioning, healthy males when they grow up. I want my you know, I had lots of friends coming that wanted their partners alongside them that were men, and I wanted them to be able to have that. So I absolutely had to hold that position, and I got a lot of bullying, but at that time we didn't have the internet, so it was only on my phone, and I could control it. And my mantra became, I'm controlling it so nobody else can, you know? And I did try to maintain that, and I did maintain it with 2010 until the final week. And as you see, it just scattered, and I fell apart, and I just let them take over. I couldn't help it.
Well, unfortunately, that what they do.
That's making sense.
Yeah, they do have this strategy of wearing people down, and it's becoming something a pattern I'm recognizing over and over again on various forums, which is one of the reasons why I don't contribute to any of these groups anymore. I learned this. I haven't contributed to any other groups in a major way, apart from the ones that I know are very well controlled by nice individuals. Okay, Sheva, just a moment. Let's